I still remember the exact moment my world began to unravel. It wasn't the dramatic scene you'd expect, no lipstick on the collar, or mysterious phone calls at midnight. Instead, it was Serafina's tablet chiming with a notification while she was in the shower. We'd been married for 7 years, and I'd never once checked her messages. Trust was something I believed in completely. That day was different. Something had been off for months. Serafina, with her copper-red hair and emerald eyes that once looked at me with adoration, had become distant. Our conversations felt rehearsed, her kisses mechanical. The woman who had built a social media empire as a lifestyle influencer, showcasing our perfect marriage to her 2.3 million followers, barely acknowledged my existence when the cameras weren't rolling. The message preview showed just enough. "Miss you already. Last night was..." from someone saved as J Business. James, my business partner. My friend also, I thought. My hands trembled as I opened the conversation. Hundreds of messages dating back nearly 2 years. Explicit photos, plans for their rendezvous. Mockery of me. I felt physically ill, but forced myself to scroll through their digital betrayal until I heard the shower stop. That evening, after a day of pretending my heart hadn't been shattered, I confronted her. We stood in our expansive kitchen, the one she'd showcased in countless Cooking with My Hubby. Videos, marble countertops gleaming under designer lighting. "I saw your messages with James," I said, simply. Serafina's reaction wasn't guilt or remorse. She laughed, actually laughed, tossing her hair back in that practiced way her followers adored. "Oh, Everett," she said, her voice dripping with condescension. "What exactly do you think you're going to do about it?" "I'm thinking divorce might be appropriate," I replied, my voice steadier than I felt. That's when she said it, words that would ultimately seal her fate. "Divorce? Please? You're nothing without me. Who built our social circle? Who made us relevant? You're just a tech guy who got lucky. I'm irreplaceable, Everett. You'll never find anyone like me, and you'll never survive socially without me. This house, our friends, your business connections, they're all through me." She stepped closer, her designer heels clicking on the imported Italian tile. "Besides, James is just fun, a distraction. You should be grateful I still come home to you." I said nothing as she walked away, already typing on her phone, probably to him. In that moment, something inside me shifted. The pain was still there, but now accompanied by something else. Resolve. I wouldn't beg, I wouldn't break, and I certainly wouldn't let her see what was coming. For 2 weeks after discovering those messages, I lived in a strange limbo. By day, I was Everett Caldwell, successful tech executive and devoted husband to social media, darling Serafina. By night, I lay awake beside her, listening to her breathing, wondering how many times she'd slipped away to be with James. I needed irrefutable proof, not just for any potential legal proceedings, but for my own sanity. Serafina was masterful at twisting reality. One moment she'd deny everything, the next she'd minimize it as just flirty texts. I began to question what I'd seen, so I hired Davis, a private investigator recommended by my attorney. He was discreet, thorough, and expensive, but worth every penny. "You sure you want to see everything I find?" Davis asked during our initial meeting at a coffee shop far from our Chicago suburb. "Everything," I confirmed, sliding an envelope of cash across the table. 7 days later, Davis delivered a folder containing photos, hotel receipts, and a detailed timeline of their affair. It had started 26 months ago, just after Tech Fusion. My company had partnered with James's startup. While I worked 18-hour days to make our partnership successful, they were meeting in hotel rooms, at his lake house, even in our home when I travelled for business. The final confirmation came during Serafina's supposed influencer retreat in Lake Geneva. She'd posted poolside photos and inspirational quotes about finding your authentic self to her followers. Meanwhile, Davis's photos showed her and James checking into the Grand Geneva resort, his hand possessively on the small of her back. I followed them there, needing to see with my own eyes. Sitting in my rental car across from their suite, I watched them through the window. Serafina threw her head back in laughter at something James said, that uninhibited laugh I hadn't heard directed at me in years. He kissed her neck, and she looked at him with an expression of pure desire. My phone buzzed with a text from her. "Missing you, babe. The workshops today were so inspiring. Can't wait to tell you all about them." I drove back to Chicago. In silence, no music, no calls, just the sound of my world collapsing. Yet somehow I maintained composure. At home, I smiled through dinner parties where James and his wife attended. I posed for Serafina's Instagram posts about partnership goals. I sat across from James in board meetings discussing quarterly projections while he looked me in the eye, betraying nothing. "You seem distracted lately," Serafina mentioned one evening as she applied her night cream, an expensive brand she promoted to her followers. "Is everything okay at work?" "Just thinking about the future," I replied truthfully. She smiled, that practiced smile that never quite reached her eyes. "Don't worry so much. We're untouchable, you and I." That night, as she slept, I made my first concrete decision. I would leave. Not just Serafina, but this entire fabricated life. The question wasn't if, but how. She was right about one thing. Our lives were completely intertwined. Disentangling myself would require precision, patience, and perfect timing. I fell asleep planning my escape from the woman who thought I could never leave her. Once Serafina realized I knew something, the psychological warfare began. It was subtle at first, casual mentions of James in conversation. Watching my reaction, when I maintained my composure, she escalated. "James thinks we should invest in that new development downtown," she'd say over breakfast, studying my face. "He has such brilliant financial instincts, don't you think?" I'd nod and continue eating, which clearly frustrated her. She wanted a reaction, anger, jealousy, anything, to confirm her power over me. My indifference became my first act of rebellion. The manipulation took various forms. Some days, she'd be the loving wife her followers believed her to be, preparing my favorite meals, initiating intimacy, speaking nostalgically about our early days together. I recognized these moments for what they were. Not genuine affection, but calculated moves in her game. Other days, she'd be casually cruel. "You're getting a bit soft around the middle, don't you think?" she'd remark, poking my stomach. "James runs marathons, you know. Maybe you should join him sometime." The most insidious tactics were the ones that made me question my own worth. "It's cute how you still wear those department store suits," she'd say before social events. "Not everyone needs designer labels to feel confident." Then she'd adjust my tie with manicured fingers, her sapphire eyes reflecting nothing but cold assessment. During a dinner party at our home, I overheard her talking to James's wife, Vanessa. "Everett's been so distant lately. I worry about him. Men his age sometimes go through these phases where they feel, inadequate." She sighed dramatically. "I'm trying to be supportive, but it's challenging." Vanessa had patted her hand sympathetically, completely unaware that her own husband was sleeping with my wife. Meanwhile, I was quietly laying groundwork. I consulted with attorneys who specialized in high-profile divorces. I documented every instance of her affair. I began transferring small amounts of money to a separate account, nothing that would raise suspicion, but enough to build a safety net. The most difficult part was maintaining the facade at work. James and I still had meetings, still made decisions together, still acted like friends and business partners. Each handshake felt like a betrayal, each collaborative success a mockery. "You've been different lately," James commented one afternoon, as we reviewed quarterly reports. "Everything okay at home?" The audacity of his concern nearly broke my carefully constructed composure. "Never better," I replied, meeting his gaze steadily. "Serafina and I are exactly where we need to be." He nodded, perhaps sensing something in my tone, but said nothing more. That night, Serafina scrolled through her phone as we lay in bed, the blue light illuminating her flawless complexion. "James says you seemed off today. Is there something you want to talk about?" "They were discussing me. Of course they were. Just tired," I said. "Big changes coming at work." She put down her phone, suddenly interested. "What kind of changes?" "Nothing definite yet," I replied. "Just possibilities." She had no idea how true those words were, or that the biggest change would be her life without me in it. Planning my escape required military precision. One wrong move and Serafina, with her social connections and vindictive nature, could destroy everything I'd built. I created a secure email account and communicated with my attorney using a burner phone. Nothing could be traced back to me. The first piece fell into place when our Seattle office director announced his retirement. I'd always been hands-off with that location, but suddenly expressed interest in taking a more active role. "The Pacific Northwest market is expanding," I explained to our board. "We need strong leadership there." James supported the idea enthusiastically. "Everett would be perfect," he said, likely imagining more freedom for his affair with my wife. I smiled and thanked him, savoring the irony. At home, I mentioned the possibility casually. "It would just be temporary," I assured Serafina, who predictably balked at the idea of leaving Chicago. "My entire brand is built around our life here," she protested, gesturing around our meticulously designed living room, the backdrop for countless sponsored posts. "Besides, what would I do in Seattle? It rains constantly." "It was just an idea," I said, backing down easily. "You're right, your career is here." She softened, pleased by my acquiescence. "We could try long distance for a bit if it's really important to you. I could visit on weekends when I don't have events." "We'll see," I replied non-committally. Meanwhile, I was systematically preparing. I opened accounts at a Seattle bank. I found a modest but comfortable apartment overlooking Puget Sound. Nothing like our Chicago mansion, but peaceful in its simplicity. I began shipping personal items I couldn't bear to lose: my grandfather's watch, family photographs, irreplaceable mementos. The financial arrangements were complex. Our prenuptial agreement protected my business interests, but our shared assets required careful handling. My attorney helped me identify what was legally mine alone versus joint property. I wasn't interested in taking anything that wasn't rightfully mine. I just wanted a clean break. "Document everything," my attorney advised. "Every conversation about the affair, every instance of emotional abuse." Washington State is a no-fault divorce state, but this documentation could help with property division. I became meticulous, keeping a detailed journal of Serafina's manipulations and evidence of her ongoing affair. The private investigator continued his surveillance, providing weekly updates that I stored securely in the cloud. The most challenging aspect was maintaining normalcy. I attended Serafina's social media events, smiling for cameras while she draped herself over me possessively. "My handsome tech genius," she'd coo to her followers during live streams, her fingers digging into my arm with surprising strength. At night, I'd lie awake, planning while she slept beside me, her copper hair spread across the pillow, her expression peaceful so at odds with the calculating woman she became when awake. One evening, as we prepared for a charity gala, she caught me looking at her reflection in the mirror. She was stunning in an emerald gown that matched her eyes, diamonds glittering at her throat, all gifts from me. "What?" she asked, a rare moment of insecurity flickering across her face. "Just thinking about how things change," I replied honestly. She laughed, the moment of vulnerability gone. "Some things never change, Everett. You'll always need me more than I need you." I smiled and offered her my arm. "We should go. Wouldn't want to be late." 3 more weeks, I thought as we descended the stairs. 3 more weeks of pretending, and then she would learn exactly how replaceable she was. "It's just 3 days in Seattle to finalize the transition," I told Serafina as I packed my suitcase. "I'll be back for the Hendersons' gala on Saturday." She barely looked up from her phone, where she was undoubtedly messaging James. "Bring me back some of those chocolates from Pike Place Market, the ones with sea salt. They photographed really well last time." "Of course," I replied, knowing I would never return to this house again. That morning, I kissed her goodbye. Our last kiss, and she turned her cheek slightly distracted. "Don't forget the chocolates," she reminded me, her final words to her husband of 7 years. On the flight to Seattle, I reviewed my checklist one final time. Everything was in place, the apartment furnished, bank account secured, employment transition complete, divorce papers prepared. The moment the plane landed, I would cease to be Serafina's husband and become simply Everett Caldwell, a man rebuilding his life. My attorney would serve her the papers tomorrow morning, along with evidence of her affair and financial documentation, showing exactly what was legally hers. I wasn't vindictive. She would retain her jewelry, her car, and a fair settlement. What she wouldn't have was access to my future or the ability to manipulate me further. The Seattle apartment felt immediately like home minimalist, peaceful, with floor-to-ceiling windows overlooking the Sound. No staged furniture for Instagram backdrops, no designer labels displayed prominently for followers to envy. Just clean lines and quiet space. At precisely 9 a.m. Chicago time the next day, I received a text from my attorney. "Papers delivered, proceeding as discussed." Then I waited. The first call came 30 minutes later. I watched Serafina's name flash on my screen before sending it to voicemail. She called 17 more times in the next hour. Her texts escalated from confusion to anger. "What is this? Call me immediately." "Is this some kind of joke? These accusations are ridiculous. Answer your phone." "You can't do this to me. You're nothing without me. Everyone will know you couldn't satisfy me." "Is that what you want?" "James says you've lost your mind. We're worried about you." The last one made me laugh out loud, my first genuine laugh in months. By evening, she'd switched tactics. "Baby, please, we can work through this. I made a mistake. I miss you. Come home and we'll talk. I'll do therapy, anything you want. Please don't throw away 7 years over one indiscretion." One indiscretion. 26 months of betrayal reduced to one indiscretion. I changed my number that night. My new life wouldn't include her desperate attempts to regain control. The next morning, I received an email from my attorney. Serafina had shown up at his office, alternating between tears and threats. When that failed, she'd gone to our Chicago house and discovered I'd removed my personal belongings. According to our security system, which I could still access remotely, she'd thrown a spectacular tantrum, smashing framed photos of us against the wall. By evening, she'd posted on social media a carefully composed selfie with subtle tear tracks, captioned, "Sometimes the people we trust the most betray us in unimaginable ways. Taking some time for self-care and healing." Her followers responded with thousands of supportive comments, none knowing they were comforting the betrayer, not the betrayed. I closed my social media accounts and blocked her email. The digital ties that had bound us were severed one by one. That night, standing on my balcony overlooking the Seattle skyline, I felt something I hadn't experienced in years: freedom. The cool Pacific air filled my lungs as I breathed deeply, no longer suffocating under the weight of Serafina's manipulation. She had been wrong. I didn't need her. I never had. 6 months passed in Seattle like a cleansing rain. I established a new routine. Morning runs along the waterfront, productive days at the office, evenings spent rediscovering hobbies abandoned during my marriage. I made genuine friends who knew nothing of my previous life with Serafina. For the first time in years, I was known for myself, not as the husband of a social media star. I rarely checked on Serafina's life, but occasionally news reached me through mutual acquaintances or business channels. Her carefully constructed world was crumbling spectacularly. First came the financial reality. Without access to my income, she couldn't maintain the lifestyle her followers expected. The mansion required upkeep she couldn't afford. Her posts became less frequent, the backdrops less impressive. Then the professional consequences. Our divorce proceedings included evidence of her affair with James, which inevitably leaked to industry circles. Several brands terminated her sponsorship contracts, citing morality clauses. Her authentic lifestyle brand couldn't survive the revelation that she'd been living a lie. The personal fallout was perhaps most devastating. James, predictably, abandoned her when the scandal threatened their business. According to my former assistant, he'd issued a company-wide statement distancing himself from the unfortunate personal situation and denying the affair despite irrefutable evidence. He even had the audacity to reach out to me, suggesting we clear the air for the sake of the business. I never responded. Serafina's social media empire collapsed within weeks. Her carefully curated image of perfection shattered when followers learned the truth. The woman who had boasted about being irreplaceable found herself replaced and forgotten in the fickle world of influencer culture. I received one final email from her, sent to my work address after all other channels were blocked. "You've destroyed everything we built. I hope you're satisfied watching me suffer. I never thought you capable of such cruelty. I made one mistake and you punished me disproportionately. I still love you despite everything. Please come home." Even now, she couldn't acknowledge the years of betrayal and manipulation. In her narrative, she remained the victim. I deleted the email without responding. My attorney called with updates on the divorce proceedings. "She's contesting everything, but it won't matter. The prenup is solid, and the evidence of infidelity is overwhelming. She's just delaying the inevitable." "How long?" I asked. "Another few months. She's running out of money for legal fees." I felt no satisfaction in her downfall, only relief that I'd escaped. The man who had once been devastated by her betrayal now felt only a distant pity for someone who had never understood the meaning of love or loyalty. 1 year after my departure, the divorce was finalized. That evening, I stood on my balcony, watching the sunset paint Seattle's skyline in gold and crimson. My phone buzzed with a text from Claire, a museum curator I'd been dating for 2 months, a kind, genuine woman who valued substance over appearance. "Dinner still on for tonight? I'm looking forward to hearing about your day." I smiled and replied affirmatively, feeling a warmth that had nothing to do with social status or appearances. Serafina had been wrong about everything. I wasn't nothing without her. I was everything I couldn't be with her. She wasn't irreplaceable. She was a cautionary tale, a reminder of what happens when you build your life on lies and manipulation. As for me, I had rebuilt my world on a foundation of authenticity. The man who disappeared from Chicago had reappeared in Seattle, stronger and wiser. Sometimes walking away isn't an act of weakness, but the ultimate demonstration of strength. Serafina had boasted she was irreplaceable. But as the Seattle lights twinkled before me, I realized the truth. Everyone is replaceable when they bring only pain to your life. And sometimes the best replacement isn't another person, but the peace you find when you finally choose yourself.